Great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Levy Sun, Public Information Officer at the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. We are just getting started here in about a minute for our Bite Back tour in the city of San Gabriel. We have a very special guest with us here who will introduce. It's our trustee, Denise Menchaca, but also city council member. Also on the line here with us is Pablo Cabrera. Wave hello. And then in the field is none other than Ali Gaspar. Ali, could you just, while we're waiting, could you just tell us where you are right now?
Hi, everyone. I'm actually in the San Gabriel Mission District. And right behind me, you can see the view of the San Gabriel Mission Playhouse. There's a beautiful fountain and really nice architecture, and it's a nice sunny day outside.
Yeah, we're envious that you're out there in the city. I think eventually, hopefully one of these days or one of these years, the Bite Back tour will move completely remotely to be in the cities we're in. But thank you for being our in-field reporter, Ali. So looks like it is 11. We'll go ahead and get started. Let me stop the share here on the waiting screen. And let me share this other piece here. So we made it easy for y'all to interact with us, and that is through something called Slido. If you're not familiar with it, it is a way to take live surveys and also ask any questions you may have to any of us here at the Bite Back tour in San Gabriel. So be sure to visit slido.com and put in the event code SGVMosquito, or you can use your camera to scan that QR code, that funny black and white box, and it will pop up with a link. You just tap that link that's on the screen and it'll take you straight to the event. So we'll be running a couple polls every now and then throughout the next half hour or so. But let's go ahead and dive into introductions. So if you're all just joining us, my name is Leading Sun. Welcome to the Bite Back tour in San Gabriel. Very excited to be here, and we have a couple of special guests that'll be joining us today. But first off, I do want to open up introductions to introduce none other than our trustee and city council member of San Gabriel, Trustee Menchaca. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Should I?
Oh, looks like you got muted there for a second. Trustee Menchaca.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
All right. So I wanted just to welcome everyone to City of San Gabriel. Hopefully most of you are from San Gabriel, and that's why you're tuning in, because you want to find out ways how we can be bite-free. We will be having mosquito programs, ongoing programs, mosquito prevention programs, but this is the first of many series. Throughout the program, please, ask any questions through, how do you pronounce it? Slido or Slido?
Slido is what we've
Slido. Yeah. Okay, great. And, I'll just let you know a couple things we're going to be talking about is block captains in your neighborhood. I know we've already had an interest. Someone has already signed up to do that. Learning about which repellents work best against mosquitoes. Understanding about ivy versus dense vegetation, and which ones will result in more bites. But thank you so much for being here. And then I have a special announcement at the end for those who want to learn more. So thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Menchaca, and quite the suspense you're building up for our viewers. I kind of want to jump to the end right now, but
thank you.
Let's go ahead and dive into this real quick because if you're just joining us, this is the Bite Back tour in San Gabriel. We are live not only on YouTube, but also on Twitter and Facebook. And we are just here to chat about the one thing that we all dislike the most, and that is the mosquito. It is considered the world's most dangerous creatures, and for a very good reason. When they bite, they can transmit diseases to us. But before we dive into the actual mosquitoes themselves, I kind of want to talk about where we live in the city, because we get a lot of misconceptions from residents, not just in San Gabriel, but all over San Gabriel Valley, that they think mosquitoes are a problem in rural areas, out in the countryside, different ecosystems. So For Pablo, when I say ecosystem, what do you think most people think about?
And I definitely always think of, wilderness, the jungle. That's usually what comes to mind when I think of an ecosystem.
How about you, Ali?
I've been thinking actually about my front yard recently. I have a courtyard, but it has a lot of ivy, thanks mom, and a really beautiful bougainvillea, but unfortunately provides a lot of shade for mosquitoes, not just us. And then also just different, forms of insects and wildlife, very, very lush, dense place. That's what I think about.
You know what? Let's go and pivot right into that because um, a lot of people already know that stagnant water attracts mosquitoes and stagnant water is just bad all around. It can not only be an issue for mosquitoes, but it could be a public health issue in terms of long-term water storage that's not protected. So, but then when it comes to landscaping and how we think about the way we alter our immediate habitat around our home, our immediate world around us, we're also altering the ecosystem, the things that live in that environment. So I really like that you brought up your front yard because most people don't think of their front yard or backyard or even their balcony if they're in an apartment as an ecosystem. Every living thing that comes into contact with that area, even us, we are part of that ecosystem. Everything we build into an environment, like in the city, becomes part of that ecosystem. So that can do a lot of damage or good to the native plants and animals and creatures. So let's talk a little bit about the landscaping of that. And I'm glad you mentioned ivy. Trustee Menchaca teased a little bit about the ivy as well in her introduction. And a lot of people have scratched their head, well, what does ivy have anything to do with it? And in fact, ivy has a lot, unfortunately. And we see ivy and dense vegetation that have large leaves and dense bushes have a major part to play because they actually provide a lot of cool and sometimes even humid shelter for these mosquitoes. Um, Pablo, if you have any photos to share about that, feel free to bring it up at any time. And it's something that a lot of people don't realize that as they build out their landscape with ivy and dense vegetation, they end up creating what looks like Jurassic Park sometimes when you drive by their front door. We have come across many neighbors, not just in San Gabriel, but throughout the region that they're literally being bit up left and right as they walk out their door. They know about the stagnant water, but they had no idea that the ivy crawling up their wall or the dense bush that's growing in their front lawn is an issue. So we always tell residents, if you have anything that's dense in terms of vegetation, know that it's not going to create the mosquito issue, but it may bring in the mosquitoes and they may want to rest there during the day when things are, when the climate or the temperature is really high and it's really hot. Since mosquitoes are really bad at regulating their own body temperature, they need to seek refuge in places like the dense vegetation. I'm going to pause here real quick because we got another special guest joining us. We have Dane. He's from our operations department. Hey, Dane, how's it going? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. How's it going, everyone?
Doing well, doing well. I see you are in the field.
I am indeed.
You just joined us for the Bite Back tour stop in San Gabriel. We were just talking about dense vegetation and how that plays a part in a lot of mosquito issues. I'm sure, have you seen a lot of properties that may have a lot of dense vegetation?
Yeah, when I was working in the consultation program, a lot of times we would inspect people's properties and they would have super dense vegetation, very moist climates, so perfect resting places for adult mosquitoes.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And if you're just joining us, this is the Bite Back tour in San Gabriel. We're here with special guests, trustee and city council member Denise Menchaca, and also our specialist who works in operations, Dane. We also have someone else that just joined us, and it is Jung. Hey, Jung, how are you?
Well, how are you guys?
Doing pretty well. How are you? Looks like, are you In the jungle?
No, I'm actually in one of the public parks in Monterey Park. It's near
Ah.
where we set one of our mosquito traps.
Oh, very cool. You just caught us right now as we're talking about vegetation. That's why I immediately noticed the greenery behind you. We were talking about how dense vegetation is a way for mosquitoes to rest in areas where it may be too hot for them. But let's talk about the traps though, because I understand that you set traps in locations that tend to be conducive to resting mosquitoes, right?
Yeah, so when we set traps, we try to put them into really shady areas. Just because we know that that's what mosquitoes like to congregate, and we get better and more accurate numbers when we do that.
And then these traps, I'm assuming, and I get a lot of residents that ask this, are they to trap all the mosquitoes out of existence?
I wish, but that's not quite how they work. It's just to attract them, and it gives us a good idea of how big the population is in that area, but they're not effective enough for every single mosquito would fly into it. It's just good to get the basic numbers in the area.
And Jung, could you give us, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trustee Menchaca.
Oh, I had a quick question. We have 4 parks in our city. And so how do you decide which park you're going to go to? Do you evaluate the level of vegetation, and that's where you set your traps to kind of get an idea of the population of the mosquitoes?
So historically, we've trapped in several different kinds of areas, and it seems like the ones that we've chosen to place traps are the areas where we get higher mosquito numbers. So to get a better, more accurate representation of the area, we would pick those particular places. Like this one is the Loma Park.
Very cool. And I understand that the traps, obviously, unfortunately, don't trap all the mosquitoes out of there, but they do give us a good snapshot into how things are like. And I understand from a trap report that you all put out that we are, as so far in March, we are seeing below average number of mosquitoes compared to last year, which is a great sign for our residents. And normally you would think by now we would have a lot more mosquitoes due to the heat, which will eventually happen. But as of right now, it looks like things are looking pretty good. And a lot of the data that you guys are collecting is actually help people like Dane, who's out in the field. And then Dane, how do you use the traps that are, say, in San Gabriel to help guide your decisions and where to go? You're muted for now.
Sorry, without the data from the surveillance department, we can't really tell where the adult mosquito populations are really high. So we take their data and we utilize it by focusing those areas, trying to canvass those areas or revisit sites that already exist in those specific areas where the trap numbers are very high.
Very cool. Looks like you're walking around out there. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in a park right now. I just finished doing an inspection, and I just wanted to show an example of the type of source that I inspect when I'm in the field.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Pablo just shared a screen of what looks like one of the traps that Jung and her colleagues use. But yeah, let's go ahead and pivot over to what you're going to show us.
Okay, it's a little landscape drain, but stuff like this we inspect regularly, and a lot of times those drains are holding water and breed mosquitoes. So a lot of the sites that I inspect are drains like that.
And Dane, a real quick follow-up on that. With drains that you see, because those are in public areas, how do we become aware of those? Is that something more easily available to you, or being at a residential home easier?
It's easier. Are you talking about as far as like access?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier to access stuff in parks. However, there's a lot of drains and stuff, sump pumps in people's driveways or on apartment complexes that we inspect regularly. Sometimes we have to figure out a correspondence with a resident in order for them to let us in and inspect it. But a lot of times we can just come and go depending on where the drain's located. Like if it's in the front yard, we could just go check it out and do our inspection.
Cool, thank you for sharing. And if you're just all joining us, this is the Bite Back Tour in San Gabriel. We have three special guests here today with us. We have our trustee and city council member, Denise Menchaca. We have Dane from our operations department and Jung from our surveillance department. And within the outreach team, we have myself, Levy Sun, Pablo joins us along with Ali. Ali, you want to remind our viewers who just joined us where you are?
Hi, everyone who just tuned in. I'm in San Gabriel and just right in front of the San Gabriel Playhouse. They have an event going on, I think, which is really nice, but there's a great fountain and lovely architecture, and it's a very nice warm day.
Thank you. And for those of you also just joining us and who've been with us, I just activated another poll on Slido. That's another way for you to interact with us. We did pose a question of what do you think is the main source of mosquitoes in your city? We just talked about how in the public areas, Dane showed us a drain that's quite easily accessible for our staff to monitor and treat if necessary. But where do you think, if you are looking at the poll, where do you think most mosquitoes are coming from? And we'll touch on that in a bit. So if you're here, if you're a person tuning in, that's Bite Back. If you're a mosquito tuning in, well, you flew into the wrong webinar. You better turn back around because we're out to get you. So let's dive a little bit into where we find a lot more of these mosquitoes. And I'm looking at the poll right now and it shows, let me actually share the screen so you can actually join the poll if you need to do so. So I have this poll shared on the screen. So if you want to join us, go to slido.com and enter in the event code SGVMosquito. And this is a common misconception and also a very common question we get is, well, what about that business down the street? Well, what about that park in my city? Aren't they huge creators of mosquitoes because they have, say a fountain or a lake or even a large gutter in front of their business? And we say it is possible that these properties can produce mosquitoes, but the biggest difference between these public spaces versus private spaces like homes is that our team, like Dane, can readily inspect and treat them. So it looks like a lot of people are actually tagging residential properties as the main source of mosquitoes in the city. And they are right. Whoever answered that and everyone who answered was correct. Mosquitoes in our cities, doesn't matter if you're in San Gabriel or another surrounding city in San Gabriel Valley, a lot of the production of mosquitoes happens to be on people's homes, in their yards and patios. And Pablo just is sharing a couple of photos here that shows on my screen just the top right plant saucer. And yeah, saucer is extremely popular source for mosquitoes to emerge out of. He's also showing here a fountain that's sitting there. And do you have one of a bromeliad, Pablo, by any chance?
Yes, give me 1 second to get my screen adjusted.
So kind of tying back to the landscaping idea too, a source that's also a part of a landscape is something like, like a tree root system that's come out of the ground that can hold water. Bromeliads, they are a tropical type of plant that they don't grow natively here, but they can hold water in the cups down the middle. And these mosquitoes that live in our city, they love these bromeliads. So in that photo you see to the left is one of our operations specialists. His name is Ignacio. And here he is dumping out stagnant water that's been sitting inside a bromeliad. If any of you remember the Zika outbreak that we experienced back in 2016, especially in Florida and Texas, well, a big surge in the cases was attributed to the mosquitoes that were flying out of the bromeliads in some of these cities. And So we recommend that if you do have bromeliads, get rid of them. They're actually not native to our landscape. If you really love them and you really want to care for them, then we advise you to flush out those cups weekly. That way you don't have stagnant water sitting there and attracting hundreds of mosquitoes. Thank you for.
I gotta say, I always cringe when I see rows of bromeliads inside garden stores or home improvement stores. I always cringe a little bit and hope people don't buy them. But if you do, there's a lot of maintenance involved with bromeliads.
Yes, a lot of responsibility. Anything else anyone wants to add regarding bromeliads and just sources around the home? All right. There's been a lot of talk about a drought coming.
Levy, I think Trustee Menchaca has something to say.
Oh, thank you. I can't see everyone, so yeah, sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I'll just unmute myself next time. I'm just wondering, with those type of plants or any of them that are similar, why isn't there some type of, caution or care kind of note there, so the plant owners know that they should be, once a week, replacing the water. You would think, especially if there's specific plants like that the nurseries or home improvement places, have that kind of, care kind of tab or tag for plant owners.
In some of the nurseries we worked with, we have noticed that the sellers will have something that talks about the care of that plant, which includes not only making sure it stays alive, but also making sure it doesn't become a mosquito issue. I know our partners in the South in Orange County, they've worked with some Home Depot stores to post signs around the nursery area, and that there was no way to really measure if that helped or not. They still saw a lot of these bromeliads going out. So our goal right now is that as much as possible, so that way we get messages out there. Because the nurseries that work with us, they do tell the owners to please make sure you don't end up, getting bit by mosquitoes because of these plants. But it comes down to understanding the hefty amount of time to maintain these plants to make sure that they don't become a public health risk. And once owners are aware, we see most of the time that they just toss them. They realize, I don't want to deal with this. I'm getting bit up. My next party, I don't want people getting bit up, so I'm just going to go and get rid of these plants. Yeah. Okay.
Levy, I have something to share also. Another thing just to note are just plants that are rooted in water. I know my grandma had shared, I forget what plant it was, but it was a plant rooted in water to my mom, she's a gardener, so that's something that she loves to do. And unbeknownst to her, there were eggs in that water. So what happened was larvae ended up growing, and we didn't realize why we were getting mosquito bites inside one summer. And it turns out that, of course, that was the one thing. So just to have caution when you're sharing plant cuttings, and just to make sure that you're constantly changing out that water, even if it's rooted in water.
And thank you, Ali, for that. I'm glad you touched on plant cuttings, because that is a very strong practice that's done by many of our residents, not only in San Gabriel, but throughout the region. They'll either cut the stems of roses to share, or they'll share things like lucky bamboo with friends and family. And some of you watching may be wondering, well, what's the big deal? Well, since 2011, we got this little new nasty neighbor that none of us like, called the 80s mosquito. It is a black and white mosquito that many people don't know as 80s. Some people call them ankle biters. Others call them just little black and white mosquitoes. But they are very aggressive when they bite, and they tend to bite only in the daytime. And these are invasive species. So we have given these mosquitoes a habitat in our cities for them to thrive in. And these tropical mosquitoes are going after properties that have, you guessed it, tropical plants. Non-native plants that are growing in your yard that looks like Jurassic Park is inviting these type of mosquitoes. And they carry with them, or they can carry with them, diseases like Zika, dengue, and yellow fever. And outbreaks of these diseases is possible now in the city of San Gabriel because these mosquitoes are present. And now to tie it back to the stems of rose cuttings and lucky bamboo, these mosquitoes have evolved to plant their eggs individually and stick them to the edge of containers above the water line or on the plant stems themselves where they meet the water line. So as people clip off these plants and give them away, that lucky bamboo is not so lucky anymore because it's filled with these Aedes mosquitoes eggs. And these eggs are so robust. I consider them like time capsules. You let them sit without any water for a year and they'll still stay alive. So the next time they're introduced with water, boom, you now have another bloom of mosquitoes around your home. Anyone else want to add anything?
If we see these Aedes eggs, I know for the general public, and I still get confused by the Aedes eggs, they look almost like dirt along the line of containers, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Joe, have you done much in terms of looking for Aedes eggs? I mean, how difficult is it, well, using just your naked eye in the field?
Well, if you're just glancing at something, it's very easy to mistake it as just like dirt. But if you like rub at it a little bit, you'll see that they cling on to whatever they're stuck to. And they look like little tiny black grains of rice. So if you look carefully, you can definitely make them out. But if you're not looking for them, they're very easy to miss.
Wow. So these mosquitoes are tiny, but they are a huge deal in our communities.
And if we do have these Aedes eggs, Jung, what would you recommend we do if we happen to identify them or if we think we do have Aedes eggs in our yards?
If you do have a container that has eggs, the best thing would be try to scrub it off using maybe like a solution or just scrubbing really hard with water. Because even if you toss the container, that container may eventually just fill back up with water, which causes those eggs to hatch just in a different location. So the safest thing to do would be just to get rid of those eggs.
Thank you for that. And that goes for things like abandoned old tires without the rims in place. Tires, okay, how many of you have actually tried to dump out water from an old tire? I mean, you feel like you're doing CrossFit trying to throw that thing around.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah, it is impossible.
Not fun.
Not fun at all. And so that is why old tires, especially if they're stacked up high somewhere, tucked away in the yard, they are #1 reasons why some neighborhoods are inundated with these Aedes mosquitoes, because it's so hard to treat these tires because they're hidden and it's so hard to get rid of the water inside. Now, with a little bit of time left, I want to pivot to one other topic that a lot of residents ask us about, mainly because they're wondering if it even will save them money or if it will save their sanity from these bites. And I want to talk about repellent. Repellent is such a big deal now with these Aedes mosquitoes moving in. And I guess we can go around and just kind of say, especially from you, Ali and Pablo, and like what kind of repellents you use when you're out in the field. So I can start with, I like using picaridin. It's one of the ingredients that is recommended by the CDC, and you can find that on the bottle as you walk down the aisle, whether it's in the pharmacy or at your local store, like at Target, Walmart, any of those places can sell repellent. But Pablo, I see your mic is off first, so go ahead.
I have actually really grown to like DEET. It tends to be kind of the easiest one to find. And before the pandemic, I really enjoyed traveling or being active outside, going running, and it has been the one most effective for me. Much better than what some family use, which is Vicks Vapor Rub, which is a common myth. Vicks is not a mosquito repellent. It doesn't work. So just make sure you're using one of the 4 active ingredients.
And Ali, what ingredient do you reach for?
Before I get into that, Pablo, I dare you to say that to my grandma, that Vicks does not.
I second that.
Right?
I second that, Pablo. You just broke my heart telling me.
I know. You're gonna have all these people
Dang,
coming after you.
Yeah, you're breaking so many hearts here, Pablo.
Sorry to come with the truth bomb.
Well, something Pablo would approve of, though, is oil of lemon eucalyptus, which thankfully I use. And I even got my mom to use it too. We definitely love that lemony smell. Anything citrusy we like. But also, for the one that I have, it's 60% active ingredient, so I don't have to reapply it very often, which is great. I can be kind of lazy when I'm at home, so I definitely just want to apply it once and be done.
And just throw it out to Dane and Jen. What repellents do you use? Dane, I see that your mic is off first. Oh. All right, John, you're up.
I like to use D. It works pretty well for me, and it's just really easy to find when you go to a store. So that's the one I stick with.
Very cool. And then just one last thing on repellent. If you're gonna be outdoors, especially when it's warmer now and you're using sunscreen, we say put on sunscreen first, let it dry, and then put on repellent as a second layer. There are a lot of products out there that will try and sell you the combination sunscreen and repellent. Studies have shown that they're not as effective. Something else I want to also mention on top of some myth busting that Pablo has done is those bracelets that people buy. I actually went in and bought one and stuck my hand into a cage of mosquitoes with a bracelet on because I really need to know if they actually worked. Well, guess what? The bracelet worked around my wrist. I was bit up on my fingers, my hands, my forearms. So if you really want to use those bracelets, buy maybe a couple hundred and just ring them up your arm and your legs. That might just protect you. Something else I've heard a lot is the fan or even a candle. Anything that kind of emits something to, you've seen those marketing commercials. I won't call out companies right now, but you've seen those commercials. It creates this force field around you and your family, and then you're now protected and everyone's happy. Unfortunately, that's not always the case because anytime you're using these products outside and there's wind that may blow down where you're at, that wind will carry the effectiveness away. So unless you buy maybe 12 of those candles and create a ring around you like a seance, maybe that might actually work. But our best advice to everyone is the same advice your doctor will tell you is to apply the repellent directly on the skin. So ditch the itch, reach for the repellent, everyone. That's my takeaway there. So it is 11:31. We're a little over, but let's go ahead and start the wrap up here. I'll start at the very top with myself. Thank you all for joining us on the Bite Back tour in the city of San Gabriel. We hope this was not only informational, but also entertaining. Thank you to Pablo here and Ali. I'll give you guys a moment after Trustee Menchaca has a brief word to the audience. But just so that we don't keep our folks in the field lingering too long, Jung, any last minute goodbye, any words before you head off?
I just want to remind everyone to please protect yourself with insect repellent because even though we're just at the start of the mosquito season, we are seeing those mosquito trap numbers start to climb.
Thank you. And Dane, anything you want to part ways with our viewers?
Yeah, I would say just make sure that you tip out all the stagnant water in your yard. Look through your yard meticulously and either get rid of stuff that you don't need or tip it over or turn it upside down. One of those things, and it'll definitely be effective.
Thank you so much, Dane. For John and Dane, if you guys need to take off, feel free to. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here.
Okay.
Let's turn it over to Trustee and City Council Member Menchaca.
Thank you, thank you. Well, the big surprise is that on April 22nd, which happens to be Earth Day, also that week happens to be the Mosquito Awareness Week. The EV has agreed to be our guest speaker for the San Gabriel Kiwanis Club. We will be having our monthly virtual meeting. I happen to be president also of the Kiwanis Club, but if you want to have more time to ask questions and you do have to register in advance, it would be April 22nd at 12 noon. And you can go to our social media, San Gabriel Kiwanis Club, or you can follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'll be giving out more information, but we do ask that you register in advance. And you're welcome to attend the Kiwanis Club and have your questions ready for Levy. And we're excited that he's going to be there. And so that was all. So thank you so much to everybody who attended, and thank you to the San Gabriel Mosquito and Vector District for doing this. And they're going to every single city, so we should applaud them for this effort. Thank you for inviting me too.
Thank you so much for the words. Yeah, we feel like a rock band. We're trying to make sure, all right, what city are we in? Don't say the wrong city now. All right, got Pablo, and then after Pablo, we'll have Ali sign us off. So Pablo, go ahead.
Yeah, once again, today is Thursday, which we have coined at the district Tip Toss Thursday. If you go to our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, you'll see reminders every Thursday of any sources around your home or property to make sure you're eliminating any stagnant water, to tip out the water or toss out those sources so that you don't have reoccurring sources around your home. So make sure you're eliminating any stagnant water. No water equals no mosquitoes.
Thank you, Pablo. Ali.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. I just want to share a quick bite-free yard tip. Make sure to trim back your ivy, bushes, and anything else that can harbor dangerous vectors like mosquitoes.
Very cool, thank you. And for those of you who want to be more involved in your city and also with us, visit bitebackchampion.org to join our Bite Back program. So if you run anything like a community watch group, or if you're part of a group that just wants to be more active in your city, we have a Bite Back program where we can work with just you and your neighbors to create a more bite-free community. Thank you all for joining us. Next week, we are in the city of Rosemead. So join us then, watch our social media. And thank you all so much. Stay healthy and stay bite-free. Thank you, everyone.